Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Meghan, I'm Operations Director here at Wolfenden, and I'm here with my colleague Dan Pratt, who's our Solutions Director. We are going to talk about some of the findings that we made in our most recent sector report, which was on home furnishings. Dan researched and wrote that with the support of our expert team, which is why he'll be talking to me about it today. So I'll start us off with the first of our topics, which is working from home. So obviously that's the biggest change that we've seen in the last few years in the home furnishing sector. That boom in working from home that was caused by COVID. And for many of us office workers, it's continued since COVID as well. So then, what do consumers want from their home spaces and furniture now? How has this changed since the majority office life?
I think it's been a really interesting few years since obviously the pandemic came along. I think there was already this question around flexible working. A few organisations had started to work and figure out the balance of working from home between working in the office. And from an online landscape point of view, at that point it's quite traditional. You had organisations, we still have organisations like Office Furniture Direct, these broad companies selling very functional office furniture, and the main customers will be offices, businesses, filling large areas in a very functional space. The pandemic obviously changed that quite swiftly, but it changed it. I think customers had a very temporary view of that. Okay, we quickly need a desk at home. We don't know how long this is going to last. So there's very much make, do and mend. Etsy responded quite well. They had quite a few of these kind of half office products that you could maybe put a laptop stand on top of a desk or something that could change the functionality quite quickly.
Better than the kitchen table.
Better than the kitchen table. Put a home, a house plant on the kitchen table, and then suddenly you've got a office aesthetic. But now it's more something, it's permanent. We're working from home, whether we're split between the office and home. There's a need for a permanent fixture within the house. So that functionality is turned into more of an aesthetic. How can we have an office that fits in with our home aesthetic? How can we be comfortable in our office at home? How can we make it more of a permanent space? How can we work healthily at home? So some of the products like standing desks and certain ergonomic furniture, there's much more investment in that home office space, and that's going to continue to evolve.
Do you think people are looking for dual purpose pieces, or are we trying to keep life and work separate even when we are working from home?
I think the ideal is to keep life and work separate, but I think there's a necessity there. So you can't move house to suddenly accommodate room for an office. So now can an office fit in with our current homes? Is that an extra space within the current home? Is it a loft conversion? Is it using part of a room? Or does that office or working environment need to be multifunctional? So when the family is back home, then that space can be used as family space. There's also a question of, can you separate it by putting in space in the garden, or as mentioned in the loft? So there's almost like a very small but clear commute to work, and there is that separation. So I think a lot of investment has gone into the home throughout the pandemic, but there's that point is still evolving. I think the main point is that people want a clear functional working space, and that's not just traditional office working space. It can extend to like health and beauty, for example, or a pet business or a craft business. So there's all sorts of working spaces that we're looking to create in our homes.
Makes sense. What about the smart home? How do you think that's changed?
Well, I think the need for connectivity and a smart home, a connected home, again, it's changed with working from home. because the office connectivity and security is very different. It's a very different requirement than what you need at home. I think there's companies like IKEA have made a point in creating a much more accessible range to be able to create a connected home. They've not just done it with the home, actually, they've just recently done it with the home gym products as well. So they're really focused on these separate needs of customers. And that allows that kind of work environment to transition to home and be connected much more easily to what you might be connecting at home, whether that's entertainment or whether it's home functionality, whether it's you want your washing machine connected or your lights connected, or there's all sorts of things that can now be connected. Home furnishing retailers need to think about that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, lots to consider when it comes to the purposes of what your home furnishings are and what you need to do.
Yeah.
I guess we'll then move on to a topic that's a little bit closer in terms of timeline, which is the recent cost of living crisis. Now that's obviously impacted loads of sectors in quite significant ways. How would you say that's impacted the home furnishings sector?
I think it's impacted in a way that prior to the cost of living crisis, there'd been a lot of investment in the home off the back of the pandemic. So there was a lot of people who had maybe excess cash because they couldn't go on holiday, they couldn't spend it on various other luxuries. So the investment in the home peaked to a certain extent for a lot of people in the pandemic. And at that point, there was quite a broad view of how to target or what to target within the sector. So there are a lot of organisations that focus on a wide range of affordable quality or luxury pieces of furniture. And that was a really common message throughout the research. There's lots of organisations who had a very similar proposition in terms of we've got the choice that you need, it's quality and it's at an affordable price point. So that's blurred the lines between efficient, kind of affordable products and then luxury special products.
Yeah, because everyone's claiming to be the same thing, basically.
Yeah, and there's no real cut through as to how you can attain the home that you want, the home that most suits you, because the choice is just vast and wide and everything's out there. So you've got to spend a lot of time researching to reflect that. I think one of the biggest opportunities and what the cost of living crisis has done is it's allowed some companies to focus on particular categories, because the way to achieve what you want in the home is maybe not wholesale change, maybe not changing everything in a room or across the home, and it's actually looking at accessories and looking at how you can change the look and feel at an affordable rate. And a good example of that's William Wood mirrors, who really reflect some of the social influences look and feel that they try and get across. This kind of these big full-length mirrors in a fairly minimal, chic-looking home, but it's one item that allows you to achieve quite a broad look, and it just makes that affordable luxury accessible, and it just makes the fact that there's maybe pressure from the cost of living. If you've got one aspirational item that you want to add to your home, then it's much more achievable to go for that one item or one particular look.
Yeah, and you would say they've used their social channels really to achieve that.
They really stood out from a social point of view. That's largely through Instagram. Yeah. Really consistent kind of look and feel. They have used influencers, and that's moved across to TikTok. One thing with TikTok, there's obviously a lot of hype about the platform, but for home furnishings, the engagement rate is particularly higher for that category. It's almost 5% across the category. And that is much higher compared to the likes of Instagram, where the aim is very similar. So there's an opportunity to really push home furnishings and particular looks and feels through TikTok.
Well, TikTok's also quite a bit more around customization of your own, what you've got, and changing that around from a home.
Yeah, absolutely. That home hacks approach, and it's worth mentioning IKEA from that point as well, as we're on the cost of living. Not only is IKEA affordable, they really focus on the functionality and particular needs. So they did student boxes for £99, which covered all the basics for students. So they're really tuned into meeting the cost of living need. But it's also, all of their products are very hackable. So their kitchens are extremely hackable in that you can get alternative fittings and fixtures to enhance the look and feel of your very affordable IKEA kitchen. And their classic Kallax range, where everyone has a Kallax unit somewhere in the house storing, whether it's storing vinyl records or kids' toys, you can quite easily buy decals and cover those units and make them your own and have them fit in with your own look and feel.
Makes sense. That brings us on to our third topic, which is looking at future trends. So we're really seeing some very strong trend cycles at the moment, from the farmhouse aesthetic to the minimalist, quiet luxury trends, sparked by TV shows like Succession. How is that impacting the industry? Like with investment pieces like furniture, obviously it's quite a bit more difficult for consumers to chop and change, the sofa in their house. How can brands tap into those kind of aesthetics?
I think overall there's a furniture kind of trend of having pieces that fit with a multiple aesthetic. So you're looking at a long-term investment in a good quality piece of furniture, whether that's across sofas or with your kitchen or various rooms. The large purchase items, the purpose is to have something that fits in with an aesthetic that you can potentially change. So those trends don't necessarily have to be about the complete look and feel. As we just talked about, the cost of living crisis. So you can follow trends through colour, you can follow trends through soft furnishing, you can follow trends through feeling and culture. There's certain well-known furniture trends off the back of kind of Scandinavian design, which a lot of people are now familiar with, not just through IKEA, but that's spreading across other organisations and brands. And the Japanese kind of furniture approach, which is all about the space in between the pieces. So if we become more familiar with cultural elements and actually what our choices do for our own well-being, then we can reflect that in the purchases that we make and follow trends that suit us and aren't necessarily driven by consumerism. And I think there is an underlying inertia based on the need to question consumerism and the pace of consumerism. Actually, customers don't necessarily always want to keep up with the latest trend. They want to find something that suits them, that makes them feel good, whether it's a health and well-being point, or whether it's a sustainability kind of looking ahead for the environment point. And all of these topics kind of tie into each other, that there's a more consistent conscience about how we develop and invest in our homes for the long term.
Yeah, and it's how brands can kind of tap into that and really understand what their audience is after when they're thinking about things like targeting these trends.
Yeah, a good example of that is, John Lewis recently has a new design director for the home side of the business, and they've pared things right back. It's not about answering everything all at once. It's about focusing on two aesthetics, modern and classic, and actually paring their range back so they're focused on those looks which do change from season to season, and so they can then wrap around products, soft furnishing products, colours, palettes, and certain accessories to enhance those throughout the different seasons.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's about it from us for today. And so thanks, Dan, for speaking to me about this sector today. You can read the full report on our site. Any questions, obviously, always feel free to drop us a line. We'd love to chat. Thank you so much.